Hi, Malavika.
Hi, Sheba.
So wonderful to see you. Welcome to Soul Brews with Sheba. And I'm so delighted to host you on Coffee and Soul. Thank you so much for making the time.
I'm equally delighted. It is the best thing on a Saturday morning.
Lovely.
And Sheba, I've known you so long. So it's been great. It's good to have a conversation. And if Soul Brew
Absolutely.
makes us come together,
Absolutely.
more
Be
than
that, so be it, isn't it?
yes.
Exactly. Do you have your cup of tea or coffee? What are you drinking?
Well, today, because I've escaped
Yeah.
the hills and being a chai ka bacha, I thought it would be tea. But then, Pakawa hill tea doesn't do it for me. And I didn't bring my correct orthodox tea. So I have pulled out a ready sachet of Samahan.
Samahan is great tea. So lovely. And I'm going to pour myself. Can you imagine? Am I doing Gaddari? I don't know. I drink a lot of coffee, but being a chai kid,
It's
but
okay.
but
Tea and coffee.
it all kind of goes together. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I often wonder. All right, let me just pour myself in. That's great. Lovely to have you here. My
Thank you.
pleasure. To life, to all this getting over soon, and to physical meetings in the very near future. Look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. What's this about coffee? I wonder. Anyway, so Malvika, I'm going to ask you to hold this cup of tea in your hands, and if you just nestle it in your palms and sit back.
Yeah.
You're in the right space actually for it right now. But just sit back and close your eyes. Now, what comes up for you? Anything you see?
Right now, I can first actually feel the silence. I can hear a couple of dogs and I think of my pet. And after that, it takes me back to the silence of a veranda in Papua Tea Estate. And I'm actually looking out at the garden, the trees, the little hedge, lilies. And I'm also got my little bit of art in front of me. It was a perfect moment that day. And the silence just took me back.
It's amazing. It's very evocative, Malvika. And thank you so much for sharing it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah.
What else does it do? What does it mean for you?
It's bringing me a sense of what I love doing best is watching nature, like watching the grass grow as well as drawing it. So it's something that I do less now or very little of. But I keep, every now, like today, you've got me, I'm toast, I've had a nice breakfast, sitting up, I'm cozy and warm and nice guy. And it's like, Pabhoy Tea Estate veranda, because maybe I'm sitting up in the things. I miss my slightly warm, tropical, humid, flush east. Yeah, every now and then. So that's what it's bringing for me.
Yeah. And you've just recently come to Landor, right? That's why you are taken a bit of a break from work and home and here with family. How's that going?
What
the break?
The break. So actually, it was looking out of. I'm really looking at the window now, and it's this view. I'm looking onto the whole Doon Valley,
wow,
which is where I grew up a large chunk of my life, and two things occur. One is a shift in perspective. I always looked up at the Mussoorie lights every night, walking back to school, and
tennis courts and the tennis courts.
Yeah, and walking to number 6.
That's right.
And generally, it was one of the things you did. I looked up past the lychee trees, and you saw Mussoorie twinkling there. Exactly. And the funny thing is, the first time I'm up in Mussoorie for most for the night, and I'm looking down on Dehradun. And I thought, the flip of it is quite interesting, because it was always looking at this magical, elevated Mussoorie, and now it's just the reverse. So one was that. And the second is this view. It's a veranda, small veranda, looking out at the mist rolling in. And sometimes there's something available, which is this beautiful vista. I think I could see Saharanpur this morning. And in a couple of hours, just white out. We in a cloud, and there's nothing there. And then slowly it's ephemeral. I do read a lot, so I use these words, but it's like magic, because sometimes something is showing and something isn't. And it's so capricious. It's so mutable and it's ever changing. So I just feel like this is it. Right now is it. Oh, and the next thing, this is it. Right now is it. And it's all very restful. It calms you down, knowing that there's nothing, you don't know what's coming ahead, and yet it's going to be fabulous. Of course, it is a beautiful, aesthetics do matter. So that, once you've seen that beauty, it'll show up in different ways. Sometimes when I look out of my Gurgaon window, I do miss oak forests. But when it's there, it's like saying, even in this beauty, sometimes it's there and sometimes it isn't. And between my first cup of coffee in the morning to this.
No. So stop here, Malavika. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. What does that mean for you? What is it? It's almost like a metaphor is being created here for you, which you are probably, what I'm sensing and hearing is you're trying to voice it and articulate it in a manner, and it'll take some time, maybe this trip, but I maybe I'm pushing it a little bit. So I'm very curious to what is it doing for this, sometimes here and sometimes not, and it kind of comes, it's breath, isn't it? Breathe in and breathe out, and 1 minute, 1 second, you after on the out breath, you're not there, right? The breathing life comes back in. So I'm curious. Tell me more, and also then tell me about verandas.
I will tell you verandas. I think life should ideally be spent in verandas with a bookshelf close by. That's everything else then will work out. But before we come to verandas, something about being there and available, not there, like breathing in, breathing out, is somewhere you find stillness. And I'm finding that stillness. It was a deep focus that always helps me feel calm or feel or heal or sort of re-energized. All these words don't work, but it's like being sthir.
Totally works. Totally works. Go ahead.
And it rejuvenates, feels too much like a spa, but it's a general sense of being able to be still and being okay. So it's like, say, you abandon yourself rather than trying to control.
So surrender to the moment, right?
The surrender for me. Yeah. It's like surrender, but more like surrender in the sense of abandon, in the sense of letting go.
And abandon that, and that's a beautiful, powerful word. And
that was what it was. It was sometimes there, and otherwise always thinking, ye hoga, nahi hoga, plan B, plan C, somewhere that always this thing going on. And it was as simple as, will it rain today? Will there be sun? Will we be able to go for a walk? Oh, it started drizzling. Oh, now it's got changed. Let's wait 10 minutes. It'll pause. Will it pause? So it's not a perfect plan. There is no plan. And that, I think, sometimes being away is really like, within 24 hours, and it's not even 24 hours since I got here, I can feel the shift. And it takes me back to when I was younger, and maybe even much younger than when I was in Papoy. I was a teenager by then.
Of a boy being a tea estate, right?
Tea estate, yes.
Who don't,
Sorry.
you grew
It's
up in the tea estate. Just
estates,
for
yeah.
everyone to know that
Yes,
share
sorry.
that heritage.
Yes, so I grew up in the tea estates, and I grew up in Upper Assam actually. And I will take you back to a place there, which is my go-to place. It's almost meditative. So when I go to Namtok, which is beyond Namdang and Margarita, it's one of the tributaries of it's the Dirok River, which goes into the Buri Dihing at some point, and it's literally the foothills. It's lovely pebbles, and it's sort of a glen into which we used to go for picnics. But there, I must have been 7. The sense of stillness is, I used to fade away. I didn't have a body. I would fade into, there was no,
Yeah, it's right. It's
I
right.
didn't exist. And that feeling, because maybe I grew up in such beauty and such carefree, remoteness, that then you, without realizing it, is something you search for and find those moments that define your decisions, or at least mine. And so when I go back to sitting, maybe, how old was I? I was 18, 19. Didn't realize my hormones were raging, but as a teenager, it was about a happy, like happy teenage where you listen to your music and well, everybody played tennis. I was a lazy sod, and I still am. I would sit in verandas and paint. And for me, that's what it took me back. And I didn't bring any of usually I always have a sketchbook with me. And today I haven't even brought that. It just didn't happen in the packing. And I brought my laptop, but I didn't bring my paintbrush. So for me, that's
something.
That's what I'm missing. Yeah.
It's beautiful. As I said, again, this is so, and I resonate so completely, coming from the same kind of a background, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and it takes me back. So thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift, because I think it's what a lot of it, a lot of who we are is shaped by where we grew up and the kind of early life we lived. And
Yes.
I think we share that heritage and that history, and no one can take that away from us. So yeah. So moving further on this note, as you reflect on your journey, and we've got onto a very interesting start with going back to 6-7-year-old in Assam on these pebble waters and then verandas. How did it go? How has your journey been? What have been some of your key movements?
Okay. So there are two things, I often think, because also my answers will keep changing. I feel what I would have said maybe 5 years ago will be different to what I say 5 years next.
We grow and change.
In this instance, there were two things that critically shaped, because I've been thinking about it and, out of different conversations. And one was that growing up in a sort of corner of India, literally, Margarita couldn't be further, probably furthest civilization. Next was Burma. There was a sense of hunger and wonder. These old libraries made us travel, because I was 70s and 80s kid, so you traveled and the world came to you, and you're curious about the world. So I think that there was a certain hunger and curiosity to know. And the second really was also a great amount of privilege. And I want to talk about that, because while a large part of India, my country, is very differently placed, I did grow up as in a very feudal, old colonial system, which is something I'm looking at when I'm reading a book now, saying, oh, really, is this the way I would write the sentence? And maybe there's a different perspective. But I did grow up with privilege. And I went to, even going to Carmel Convent Digboy, which is this oil town, which is quite fancy from where Margarita was a sense of privilege, and being able to have a veranda and being able to access Namtok on a weekend was privilege. So that from that corner of the world, it wasn't, I think the best thing I got was an education. And that I was lucky to have a good education in school. And then further on, when I made those choices, I was always challenging my dad. Now I realize my dad was probably my best champion, because I am a single woman, 49, who's straight, and has chosen to be this person. And I work and I run a company, work at a company and work with a large number of colleagues. And I've had a very checkered.
And you work with DK, right?
Yes, I work in a publishing company called DK. I'm a designer who works there, and I've sort of become more into leadership and management. So I'm now the design head of DK India. And DK is a Brit company, which does a lot of visual design books.
So DK stands for?
Dorling Kindersley. Erstwhile Dorling Kindersley. Now it's just a brand, a brand word.
Yeah.
But it was started by a designer, and they really used design thinking and visuals right from the start. And also the things that pulled me into DK was that they're crazy about plants and animals and knowledge and presenting it in absolutely fabulous ways. So it was an instant love story there. And you're like, I want to work for them because they just do amazing stuff. So that was it. So I'm there. And I think the thing was, when I go back, my mom and dad were classic 1960s education. And my dad went to Stephen, my mom went to Miranda House. And my dad said on the breakfast table one day that girls shouldn't go to Stephen's. And that was it. Challenge. And I was like, wow. I said, I will go to Stephen's and I will get my marks. I will not use your, how it's you'll get it because you're my daughter. I'm like, aap dekhega, type of thing. And and of course, at that time, I was listening to Madonna, who just won Papa Don't Preach, and he thought it was the worst song, and he was listening to Dire Straits and couldn't understand why I couldn't understand Mark Knopfler, which who I do now. So, it was teenage years, and I was like, hum college aise karega. So, and in all this, my mother, who's the voice of calm, there's this design institute. You seem to always want to draw, the back of my notebooks were always sketches. And, I was always the person in school who would do chart competition and all, so you felt you were like the cartoonist, the doodler, and everybody said, wow, you write your name so nicely. But it wasn't that. So, but my mother said, try this, NID, Ahmedabad and all. What? I thought Calcutta was the zenith of the empire.
Right.
So Delhi was very, rural. I mean, backward in those days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in 1978, 79, I mean, chalk and cheese.
Yes.
And I landed up quite by chance, filling up those forms. We were all filling up forms. Usha Albuquerque, I think she had come and done career counseling, and she said, you should be IFS, IAS, criminal lawyer. I was like, wow, because we just filled up a form. And investigative journal. No, design was second, some sort of designy sort of thing, which they had a weird. And I was like, I'm not going to do any of this. I'm going to do English honors, Stephens, and just to put Papa down, that's my plan. So, but everybody was doing these, and we filled up the form, and I wrote all sorts of whatever came to my head first thing. So I feel that one was also the curiosity. Ye kaun si cheez hai? Ye bhi try kar lete hain. So there was no fear, even though I thought I had this privilege of saying I'll go this way. I landed up in Ahmedabad. And I think that was probably quite by chance the happiest mistake that happened to me. I found my tribe of people who often would think like me or would be okay and far more talented and far more creative. So college was great. I went to design school in Ahmedabad. And it changed some of my wiring. And I'm very glad for that. I made the most tremendous friends. And I feel very confident of that. I sometimes feel that those are really good years or best years. Young, you're doing stuff, the world's your oyster. So that's it. And because it was so plural and open and multidisciplinary, for someone who came from seeing a factory working, from a paint shop to my granny used to weave, to come into an institute like that, it was okay to have different interests. And that's why I feel that it wasn't unidimensional even when I was growing up. I remember Grayson, the painter in Bogapani, who's lettering my trunk, my school trunk, 1980, probably February. As the first time I watched somebody do hand typography, and as I was a great watcher, so I spent hours watching him and he was a perfectionist. So it was like watching art being created, So I felt that was very lucky. So then through my career, which has been here and there and everywhere, I decided कि ये भी करेंगे, क्यों नहीं करेंगे, ये भी करेंगे, वो भी करेंगे. When there was already by the 1990s, not so much, but by 94, 95, that you must have a career, and what about in Ahmedabad, and you see the IIT Ahmedabad, IIM sort of scene, and there's sort of career graphs and writing resumes and so on. And I was like, who cares? So I think that kind of was nice for me.
Yeah. All right. And being able to find, what I'm hearing is being able to find your center in the middle of all this as well.
Do what you want and have the thing. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you get it right. But I think to have worked in the big, a dabble in ad filmmaking. So I'm a I trained as a visual communication, which was graphic design with a specialization in video. Nobody knew what video was. So it was just about looking at a bit of advertising, early days in Bombay.
And did you spend some time there?
I think 2 months in advertising was enough, but I love Bombay. And I came back to Delhi, and I wanted to make documentary filmmakers. And I thought a feminist voice must be heard. I wasn't even sure whether I was a feminist or anything. And I'm probably not. But at that time, there was, and I landed up finishing some work, and landed saying, and she said, oh, they're recruiting for a film. Will you want to be an assistant? And I had this bucket list of, I want to work on a movie set. I want to do a documentary. I want to do a shoot. I want to do a book. So I had this list of things I wanted to do, and none of them were, there was jack of all trades, master of none. So after that, I worked on a film, and then I had a career in feature films that came to India at that time. And
feature films like which ones?
I started with Deepa Mehta's first of her trilogy. So I was.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Okay, so
no,
I was the people I was working for, Sanjay Kak and Baj, they had a company called Octave, and I was doing some docus for them. They said, I said, I don't know what to do now. So they said, go and meet my friend Aradhana. She's going to be looking for an assistant. I was like, hum to chai bhi de dega, because I'd worked on Bombay sets where if you're a flunk, you're a real flunk,
Right.
So I was like, kuch bhi karega, feature film, unknown director, unknown whatever. And I went to the IIC and met Aradhana, who I ended up knowing, from another world. And I said, I'll work. So I landed up being what was my credit now? I can't remember. I think art department assistant on fire. So 1990, 96, winter shoot. So yeah, so that was Yeah, that was the winter. So that's my
How did that go? How did that go? Did you enjoy
yeah, it's
those
hard
days?
work.
Do you look
I
forward?
loved film. I still love uh yeah, it's my no, I don't know where this will get broadcast, but it really definitely is what I sometimes miss as a rush. Yeah, it
Yeah,
gives me an
sure.
adrenaline rush. It was great.
Yeah.
And also working with so many interesting people, cameramen, and it's again a very multidisciplinary, lights, camera, carpenters, painters, and of course brilliant talent. So
Mm, mm,
I
mm.
mean, I was so kicked out. Shabana was on my set, and like, and Kulbhushan Karbande was terrified of. Uh,
Uh,
but what it taught me very quickly was a work ethic, which I'm
mm,
always
mm,
grateful for, and accountability. Like
mm,
film is like boot camp. So yeah, so I had a
mm,
career in
mm,
film, and then I was missing my design, so I would come and um, work in what was then multimedia and CD-ROMs. High
mm,
tech,
mm.
yeah, high tech. So it was a nice journey. And
Sure.
then I just kept evolving with technology. I went back into books. I always enjoyed books. And then
Mm,
DK was hiring for multimedia in India. So I joined them.
mm.
And it was like the best thing. I was like, oh, they make CD-ROMs and they are open to movies and digital, uh, and books kind of fit them. And then next thing I knew, I've been with DK, but then was in and out. I used to do film, and
Mm, 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 mm.
then
Interesting. No, you got to do stuff and you actually got paid for it, huh? It was like your passion. You were working with it throughout.
it
Is that
seems like
correct?
that now, but at some time there was also, I did movies because they paid much better. So DK
Sure.
would be like, hi, sick, I want to buy a Mac. Those days was damn expensive. You do a movie, you can buy one. I was young and foolish.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel some of those decisions weren't very well thought out. I was often told when I said, oh, I better settle down, and I used to call it my experiments with the desk, because I was just always hopping from one thing to the other, and designers do get bored easily.
Mm, mm, mm,
So unless it's your passion project, you like, okay, been there, done that, next.
mm, mm, mm.
So I remember a recruiter telling me, see, there's no staying power. You haven't done anything. You are master of none. And those were things that you. Of course, I had a group of people in film, which I felt that there was shorthand. There were people I'd worked with for years. If they call me even today, I would drop everything and deliver.
Mm.
But it's different to working in an office
Of
environment
course.
or it just all came together, and then
Yeah,
now
and
I've been in.
so do you think you would have chosen anything differently, Malavika? Is there something you feel you should have done differently?
Only
And
one thing.
I don't mean it in terms of
No,
good.
there's only one thing,
Yeah.
because I think um, definitely not. I loved my, now looking back, and I'm going to be 50 at the end of the year, so I am doing a bit of a think, and I was like, no, I loved all the maverickness. What's the point of looking back and regretting and all? But there is one regret, which was, I think I was not astute enough, or I was at that point too distracted by other passionate encounters. Was I had the opportunity of going to a grad school in the States, and somebody was very politely telling me that they would sponsor me,
Mm,
and they were trying to tell me without making me feel um, embarrassed,
mm.
or they were just actually saying,
Take,
perhaps
yeah,
take
yeah,
it,
yeah.
we got it. And it was something, it was D school at Stanford, and
Wow.
my aunt in California who said, this is starting. They were in on it when it was starting.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's the one thing I feel that might have been that's just as a lover of knowledge and eternal student. I feel that's my only regret, that I didn't do that, because I
mm,
do it. The only place I go and look at with envy and say, so it's not the jobs or the places or things one could have done. I'm very happy with what I did.
yeah.
When I look at some of the moments, I was cribbing and moaning and groaning like a real chew. But looking back, none of it was as true as I would have looked at it. It's good, yeah. I did exciting projects, and
I think it's fabulous. I think it's fabulous that you chalked out your own path and you followed it courageously, bravely, and because perhaps there was no other way that you wanted.
there was no path also. No, it was not a direct path.
Correct.
It wasn't advertising. I said, नहीं, advertising नहीं करना है.
Right,
पता नहीं publishing में क्या होगा, वो भी नहीं करना. You know, jacket design नहीं करना, कुछ करना है. So it was just that saying.
Yeah, and so you never know. You might be going to Stanford and lecturing at some point. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I've been back there a few times since.
I totally believe.
When you said, "Is there anything?" I said that was an opportunity I did not recognize. It was a recognition problem, not a miss.
So, Malavika, when things are going not so well, and we were talking just before we started, we got into this recording this and saying that it has been the last 6 months have been very tough, and for a lot of us, and because COVID just seems to be endless, and the implications thereof. When the chips are down, what do you fall back on? Is there a metaphor for life, or a couple, or how do you get back to a space where you feel it's okay?
Wow. I think right through, but last year particularly, and I think this year particularly, when you're performing your role or whatever decision making you do in whatever you do, not just work but life as well. If you're doing it individually as an individual performer, then my expectation of myself, or what my optimism for myself, my bounce back, and even my wallow can be very mercurial or up and down, because I'm talking to myself and I can say, okay, now just shut up, or get on with it, or chin up, such words. But now for the last few years, when I'm working with a really wonderful bunch of designers, I'm very proud of all my colleagues. And when I'm over the years, I've had some tougher assignments or mandates to deliver in terms of transformation of teams, and I think I've often been told, can you just slow down? I remember one IT guy said, what do you eat for breakfast? Because I used to walk in with this energy, which I never waited for people to catch up with it. But in the last few years, what has held me was to take, while I am the person who will do what I have to do for myself, it was taking everybody with me. And sometimes that load became too heavy to share. You needed to share, to stand together, to be there for each other. And I think the ability to sometimes just be vulnerable and say, okay, today is a really tough day. Today, I just don't feel like working. And so, I am in my pajamas, guys, and I'm still at this meeting, which would not have happened. I would never have cried at work. Okay, it wasn't. My work ethic at film was, if you cried on set, you were a loser, some issue. So the vulnerability, the empathy that I needed to say, okay, guys, ho jayega. We've got to get through this together. That, I think, whether it's for the family, whether it's my connection with my dog who's aging, whether it's with my team, whether it's my friends, it was that. And this year, strangely, put that optimism or that equanimity to real test, where you don't have that control. It wasn't about defying death or anything like that. I'm not have any sort of foolish thoughts like that. It was about saying, oh my God, I can't help somebody with something as basic as oxygen. I can't actually get out and get into my car without endangering my parents. It was just like a sense of being in a mental straitjacket. That I found was where it tested real test of mettle. And to find opportunities and to keep stepping back, going back to that veranda moment, or putting on music that took you back, or saying, keeping it light. That, I think, is what is the secret of keeping it light. to carry it lightly. It's okay.
Mm.
Even the control, even the need to be organized, even the need to be heartbroken or devastatingly sad, not to be in that extreme.
Just
Because everybody around us is also, but you don't need everybody to be always in the same boat as you. The fact is that keep it light. It's okay. It is. So I found that. Have I answered your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt that
wear it lightly, right?
wear it lightly, because even the intensity of getting something done, or being late, or getting it perfect, or doing your duty of, just wear it lightly. It's okay. Have fun while you're washing the dishes. It's all right. It's fun. God bless Amazon. Fine. I used to be the person who saying, "Oh, I'm against big co-op," and I was like, thank God they did.
Yes.
So it's okay. Do both. Both. It's okay. Don't have to be polar. That was me. But I do feel that what one took nap as your rhythm of every day, being able to walk in the park, or just walk, have a chat and laugh with your friends, all those things, when they go away, then you really have to only be with yourself. And then what am I with myself, which was what created some of the very difficult questions with me. But I think it's just saying, okay, it is what it is, and a few things help you pull you back, Sheba. It's, for me, it's always nature. It's almost the need for green, for trees, and the need to discover things. So I live in Gurgaon, and thanks to this pandemic and finding ways to walk, not on a treadmill, was I've discovered the Banda Road, the great reforestation project. And every time I walk on it, I bless the people who had the courage and the gumption to put it together.
We're here in Gurgaon. I don't know about it. I have to talk.
Oh my God, that's a walk we'll do together, Sheba.
All right, sounds very good.
So sorry, I can waffle on, but I have the mic back to you.
No, I think no, this is great input for many of us who are living in Gurgaon and maybe don't know about this. It's a great thing to. It's called the Banda Walk, is it?
The Banda Road. Wait, it's
the Banda Road.
Eco something reforestation. They've taken with MCG Gurgaon. I think I am Gurgaon is the and they've reforested.
Yes.
The path along the Nala, and it's wheelchair friendly. It's sight, people who have a problem with sight friendly. It's just they've changed the path. It's lovely.
That's amazing. So just to understand a little further, who have been the key influencers in your life? Who shaped you? What shaped you?
Would Michael Jackson be all right?
Yeah, totally.
Steve Jobs. So for the people who I've never met, but definitely had an influence, would be people who I've read and watched, or and of course a lot of thinkers. First, also then with my family, both my grandmothers, my maternal, paternal, both very different, but my sense of my knowledge of mythology and scripture all came from my dadi, who was quite a religious lady, and she had all of her thing. But what I managed to get from her was just the essence of working with your hands, being able to grow plants, to be able to cook everything that you want, and also know the plurality of the Mahabharata. So when I was a kid, she used to live with us, and every afternoon was a story from one of the epics, and I didn't realize that had happened. And the second was my Nani, who I got to know as an adult, better as an adult. was she brought the rest of, taught me how to live in a city, and also brought a lot of appreciation for classical music. So between those two very, strong people, I was definitely nurtured by them. And they do, I realize now some of my decision making is from that. The next were a lot of my teachers. You don't realize, but with the sense of discipline and rigor of doing my homework for anything, putting in that little extra effort, or having, Mrs. Bob who said, get up on stage and do elocution. I don't know whether it's even done anymore, but it gave me a sense of being able to stand up and present. Sometimes I'm standing in front of I said, stage fright. And I said, oh no, I could hear an old teacher or someone's, voice somewhere saying it's going to be okay, and you're fine to do that. School teachers, and Mrs. Menon, who I was quite afraid at one point to getting it wrong. The tremendous pressure to be a good student, or good, this good as a word that can be bandied. She said, brought a different perspective when I was quite young in junior school. So I'm very, very grateful to her for that, because now when I met her many years ago, I realized what she was trying to do. And then
junior school, as in junior school in Wellams, right?
Wellams. Yeah. She said, she just told me, why are you so afraid? And you're like, somebody asked you that and you never thought of an answer for that, why are you so afraid? Somebody would just not give up and say, you've figured out. And even if whatever your answer is, then you're not afraid of that answer anymore. Not afraid of the next answer anymore. And next answer. And it's like, okay. So something like that, as simple as that. And then, of course, my tremendous and wonderful gurus, really, not teachers, and friends who were my teachers in design school. Really. And then as an adult, as a person in the last few years, there were a couple, Sophie Mitchell and Stuart Jackman, were classic old DK. They were there from the inception, and I was very lucky. He's a designer. She was managing editor, publisher. And I really was mentored by them. And I didn't realize I was being mentored. It's the best kind of mentoring. And the faith they had in me helped me see my potential. And I think somebody having that blind faith in you, which is not family, somebody having that, it just changed things for me. So yes, I have a set of people right through, and few of these. And of course, there's always space for Madonna, Michael Jackson, Prince.
Great. Okay, great to hear all this. Each individual has something to contribute, I feel. It's unique to him or her or them. What do you think you contribute? What do you bring as a gift to humankind?
What I don't know, actually. In one of the things, and this is weird, because whether it was in the gardens where we were on the top of the pyramid as children of Bada Sahibs, as well as when working with crafts people and people that actually were a talent. For me, it was always learning from somebody else and being able to talk to anybody. And I think one of the biggest changes for me was when we went for a course called Environmental Perception, and we were actually sent into the village of Adalaj. Now in Assam, I grew up in an agrarian society, but the maths was a pyramid. I was still part of it, and it was not an equal interaction. But it taught us how to work with people who were doing different things, whether it was the Bijli Mistri, whether it was the Kart Mistri, the Mali would know something more. But when I went to NID and I went to this it was working with villagers, and you see the magic of what everybody brings to the table. It wasn't the education. It wasn't the degrees. It was the ability to see what that other person is doing. And it could be just fantastic to identify the talent that and have a conversation and be saying, I don't know this, can you tell me? And it was, I think what I can bring, I don't know. But I'm happy to always be open for a chat and, help. But for me, it was always the other way, saying, Acha, whether it was an old cook telling me, baby, aapka custard sahi nahi hai, vanilla dalo, which was just a few years ago. And I said, it didn't have to be Martha Stewart telling me. Nandan Singh could tell me just as well. Whether it was Lozari and Yashwant Bhai, these painters I worked with, who taught me everything I know about wood and paint. I feel that almost selfish that I'm the one who's hogging, learning all the time.
So it's also, I suppose, being able to recognize the gift everybody else has, which what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that the uniqueness that you bring is being able to see what anybody can give you and being able to appreciate it and incorporate it into your being. And I think that is a huge gift. What it does for people then is gives them equity,
And my belief, the thing that I can give back, and this is not because I work in publishing, please, but read. Or watch slightly more, not, just watch stuff that will make you think, even if it's a clever TikTok video. Just keep your, I feel that most exciting thing is to be curious all the time. That's what I offer, that, don't underestimate curiosity, and that you are curious, and that everybody is a designer in themselves. You're creating something every day, and you say, oh, it's not the part of somebody else's job to do it. And often I find people saying, I'm not artistic at all, I can't draw, I can't be. Everybody has that spark. Just find your channel, but just keep it open. Keep that's what I feel. It works.
Yeah. Great, thank you. That's very powerful, and to be able to share that and to keep that alive in yourself, and therefore kind of being almost like a mirror for somebody else. To this whole thing about contagion, and I'm talking about good contagion.
Good contagion.
we need to kind of keep building that up, some good contagion, and I think being able to do that is phenomenal, Malavika. I've really enjoyed my conversation with you, and thank you so much for making the time. Before we close out, is there anything else you'd like to say?
The current thing is, which I heard last year from both an American leader called Whitefoot and Arundhati Roy, was that the pandemic is our portal, and there is opportunities and ways of change that we can be. So I just feel, be the change. It's all changing, and I've had a lot of changes, and good way. So use the portal.
Thank you so much. That's a very powerful message to end on, and thank you, Malavika, for sharing, for being on this journey, for letting us be a part of it, and sharing your life with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have a great time in Landor, and find your stillness and your space and your joy. And I wish you great peace before you come back again.
And I'm off to get some cake, so you can see how hard it's going to be. Thank you, Sheba. It's always lovely to chat to you. And you know what? You gave me almost, this is 50%, 55%, 95% of talk time. And you said just a few open questions. So thank you for being such a great listener.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Malavika. Take care of yourself, and we'll connect up soon again.
Yes, definitely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.